Hello, good evening, and welcome to another exciting moment where we talk about the very best of stories in the world of business. It is Business 101, and my name is Blyden Ukem. In Business 101, we look at some of the key features, the principle that guides business, fundamentals, and the direction, in-depth analyses of certain business ideas and propensity of economy. In Business 101 today, we'll be looking at the key takeaways at the 2023 African Investment Forum, titled Unlocking Africa's Value Chain. The 2023 African Investment Forum AIF Market Days in Marrakech, Morocco, recently concluded with resounding success as the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesia, announced that the boardrooms during the three-day event secured an impressive $34.82 billion in investment interest, surpassing the $31 billion achieved in the previous year. The event's theme, Unlocking Africa's Value Chains, brought together heads of state, decision makers, multinationals, and investors. Dr. Adesia underscored the significance of the AIF Market Days as a dynamic, multi-stakeholder platform, stating, and I quote, "The AIF Market Days provide a crucial space for continental deal-making, fostering connections between project sponsors, policymakers, and investors." Dr. Adesia expounded on the significance of the forum, stating, "The faith and confidence are rising, and we at the financial position are doing our best to put Africa at the top of the food chain," he said. Let's listen to the president of the African Development Bank.
That Africa is the prime investment destination. That political will, commitment, leadership, and determination are there across Africa to provide wind behind the sails of investments. The presence of my dear sister Prime Minister of Barbados shows that Africa's development and that of the Caribbean are linked. We are linked by history, heritage, and blood. Africa and the Caribbean will rise together as we drive to ensure that we take our rightful place in the world in terms of unlocking the potential of our nations. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, for honoring our invitation and for being here personally. The presence of heads of multilateral and regional financial institutions, chief executive officers, and business leaders, project developers, investors, and several ministers, a total of over 1,000 delegates, shows the global investment convening power of the Africa Investment Forum. We gather at a time of heightened geopolitical tensions and conflicts around the world, which have led to greater uncertainties and could weaken global economic growth. Yet, in the midst of the challenges, Africa is growing well and showing resilience. African economies witnessed a real GDP growth of 3.8% in 2022, higher than the world average of 3.5%. Yeah, we still need to do more, but our head is above water. 5 of the 6 pre-pandemic top-performing African countries are projected to be back in the league of the world's 10 fastest-growing economies for 2023 and 2024. African economies provide some of the best investment opportunities in the world. I am optimistic about Africa. Now, do not believe me for my optimism. Believe the data. Africa's population will reach 2.5 billion by 2050, when the continent will account for 25% of the global population. The New York Times recently affirmed in a headline what we already know, that the world is becoming more African. With a youth population of 477 million people between the age of 15 and 25, Africa will be the key for supplying the global labor force. The size of the food and agriculture market in Africa will be worth $1 trillion by 2030. That's in less than 7 years from now. The African Continental Free Trade Area presents a consolidated market size of $3.4 trillion. The future of electric vehicles in the world depends on Africa. The size of the electric vehicles value chain is estimated to increase from the current $7 trillion to $57 trillion by 2050. That future as well depends on Africa. That is because Africa accounts for the largest source of the green metals for the development of electric vehicles, including platinum, 70%, cobalt, 52%, manganese, 46%, bauxite, 25%, and graphite, 21%. An assessment by Bloomberg NEF shows that the cost of manufacturing of lithium-ion precursor batteries in Africa is 3 times less than in the United States, China, and Poland, right here in Africa. Africa, Your Excellencies, has the largest sources of renewable energy sources in the world, including hydro and solar. And right here in Morocco, you have the new Ouarzazate. As investors, put your money where the future is. The future is in Africa. Investors, you see Africa not from what they hear, but from what the facts say. Moody's Analytics did an analysis of default rates on infrastructure financing globally over the past 14 years. And guess what they found? Africa's default rate is the lowest in the world, 2.1%, compared to Europe, well over 10%, and Asia, well over 8%. So Africa is not as risky as you perceive. Believe the facts. S&P Global in February of this year had a screaming headline: African private equity activity surges to a 5-year high in 2022. Private equity and venture capital in Africa soared year over year to $7.7 billion. The number of deals increased from 211 in 2018 to 404 in 2022, an increase of 91%. The total transaction value also expanded from roughly $4.7 billion in 2018 to roughly $8 billion in 2022, an increase of 66%. So invest in Africa and reap high risk-adjusted returns. The Africa Investment Forum is the place where bankable projects in Africa meet with investors, where investors meet with heads of state and governments in investment boardrooms, where comfort is given to investments, where risks are managed, and where deals are closed. There are many international conferences focused on business opportunities in Africa. No gathering, however, has been more strategic and important in terms of its convening power and capacity to galvanize investment action on the continent than the Africa Investment Forum, Africa's premier investment marketplace. What makes the Africa Investment Forum unique and remarkable is that it is highly innovative and 100% transactional. There is no other global investment forum like it. We develop and curate projects, reduce transaction costs and risks, and accelerate the closure of deals. We also improve the overall business environment within which projects and investments are structured, developed, and delivered. Since the launch of the Africa Investment Forum in 2018 in Johannesburg, South Africa, it has drawn more than 16,500 participants and generated investment interest of nearly $143 billion. At the 2022 Africa Investment Forum Market Days, the Abidjan-Lagos Highway Corridor was able to secure $15.5 billion of investment interest. This corridor would transform the entire West African region and speed up regional integration and trade. And also last year, investment interest was secured for $3.6 billion for the East Africa Railway Corridor, linking Tanzania, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Burundi. We are delighted that the Africa Investment Forum has so far closed deals, investment gaps worth $11 billion, ranging from liquefied natural gas, renewable energy, agribusiness, industrial manufacturing, creative industry, housing, and transport. It is time, again, for investment action. It is time to do it again. So let's do it again. As we meet over the next 72 hours, I ask that investors take advantage of the boardrooms to be chaired by the Excellencies heads of state and government. Let's be concrete, let's be bold, and let's be decisive. The boardrooms are well prepared. They showcase investment opportunities across various sectors in Africa. The clock is ticking. The project developers are here. You, the investors, are here. The heads of state and government, our leaders, are here. And the financial institutions are here. So, let the deals begin. Welcome again, and thank you very much.
The conversation seamlessly transitioned to the broader theme of connectivity and economic cooperation within Africa, particularly in the context of visa policies. Dr. Adesina commended leaders such as the President of Kenya, William Ruto, and the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, for their forward-thinking approach, proposing a vision of a borderless Africa. He emphasized the importance of self-confidence and valuing African identity. He said, and I quote, "We should have confidence in ourselves as Africans and value ourselves as Africans. We are first Africans," he asserted. Shifting gears to address a pressing concern, the interview explored the issue of African youth immigrating to Europe. Dr. Adesina voiced his deep concern, asserting this: "It's not acceptable that young Africans are treated like that. We must put our capital behind the youths of Africa, otherwise our future is at risk." He advocated for strategic interventions, emphasizing the need for dedicated institutions and financial mechanisms to empower the continent's youth. Let's get further details from the interviews.
Now it's time for you members of the media. The microphones are near you. Just raise up your hand. Please do say your name and your organization and pose your question. Make it simple and to go straight to the point. So it's going to be the first. And to be very good to do a balance, I want to see, of course, lady journalists as well raising hands, not just men, people on this side, on the other side. We've got this gentleman here in a suit. Please, your name and organization. And okay, we'll start at the back in yellow. I will hand over to the chairman of the Africa Investment Forum, the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Kumi Adesina, to make brief remarks, and after that, we'll open the floor to you, members of the press, to ask questions, make comments, and in some cases, compliments. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Director of Communications, Solomon. In fact, you just listened to my speech, so I'm not going to make any speeches. I just want to give a word of appreciation to you, here in this hall, wherein the media is with us. I really appreciate all of what you do. I appreciate your coming from all across Africa and across the world to be here for the Africa Investment Forum. And of course, how things are written, how they are projected, the news about Africa is so important. And I can tell you that we that are the partners for the Africa Investment Forum, we believe that Africa is the investment frontier in the world. And we believe that Africa is the bankable investment destination. We believe that whether it's in, people ask, why are you so optimistic? Why are we optimistic about Africa? Of course, we are optimistic about Africa for many reasons. How many places do you go that you have a population of 1.4 billion people that's going to grow to 2.5 billion people? That'll be 25% of Africa's population by 2050. Which part of the world do you have the largest sources of solar power, 11 terawatts in the world, except in Africa? That you can do literally 350 gigawatts of power, of hydropower, 150 gigawatts of wind power, 15 gigawatts of geothermal power. But in Africa, God loves Africa. We have all that. So Africa is the frontier when it comes to even investment in renewable energy. How many places do you go in the world that you have 54 countries all connected together to have a formidable economic zone that is what, in GDP terms, $3.4 trillion? How many places do you go in the world that you can say accounts for 65% of the uncultivated arable land left to feed 9.5 billion people in the world in 2050, except in Africa? Everybody gets so excited about electric vehicles. Yes, fantastic. The value of that today, we know, is $7 trillion. That's going to rise to $57 trillion by 2050. Well, people may want to drive electric cars, but electric cars can't move without green metals. Africa accounts for 70% of the platinum in the world, 56% of the cobalt in the world, manganese, lithium ion. So what we do with all of that is going to impact the world. And how many places do you go in the world that can boast of a population of young people like we have? 477 million young people between the ages of 15 and 35. How many places in the world can you do that? So that is the Africa that we here get together to promote, to project. It's a different kind of Africa you're seeing today. An Africa that knows its place, an Africa that has very strong financial institutions, an Africa that knows that together there is absolutely no project of any size, by the way, that we, the partners and others that we do our bow hands around, cannot handle for Africa. We are ready for thrusting Africa forward to take advantage of all the things that I mentioned, because they are potentials, but nobody eats potential. There is no market for potential in the world. We have to unlock that potential. And that's what brings us together every single day and every single year for this Africa Investment Forum. But you, the media, you always come here to help, to listen to us, to ask us questions about what we do and why we think and why we are so excited about Africa. And I'm glad that we are going to be able to talk to you today. For this Africa Investment Forum, we have more than 1,000 delegates from around the world. We got business leaders from around the world. We have people looking at different issues. I'm not going to go into that now so you can ask your questions. But what's important is this. The narrative is changing. The faith and the confidence and the belief in this continent is high. And we, the financial institutions of Africa, believe that we have the financial muscle, we're ready for it, to put Africa forward. Never at the bottom of the value chains, that's the past. Africa will be in and towards the top of the value chains for everything that it produces. And that's why we chose this, that we are unlocking Africa's value chain. Africa is no longer going to be at the bottom of any value chain. Whether it's coffee, whether it's cocoa, whether it's cotton, whether it's green metals, whether it's oil, whether it's gas, whether it's minerals, whatever it is, Africa will not play second fiddle or last fiddle again. And as I've said, and you heard me many times, the door to poverty is the export of commodities. The highway to wealth is value addition to everything that we have. And that's why we put together this Africa Investment Forum for this year. And that's why we've been able to do so much together. So once again, ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you very much for all you do, and thank you for being here. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good evening. My name is Jeffy Yasawa for The Guardian, Nigeria. We quite get the figure, $34.8 billion is 72 hours. But Mr. President, can we have a breakdown of where these investment interests are going to? Maybe if we have 2 or 3 key projects that the investors have shown interest in. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll take 2 more questions. Let's, okay, next to you there, Nasu.
My name is Lolade Akimrele. I write for Business Day Nigeria. So $34 billion at this event, that's the highest since 2019, when about $40 billion was committed. I'd like to ask, how confident are you that this investment interest would actually lead to, actual investments? Thank you.
And let's take 1 more here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Samechi Obon. I work for the Sun newspaper, Lagos, Nigeria. Like you said, nobody eats potentials. we have seen that over the last 2-3 years, we have had a couple of military coups across West and Central Africa. I don't know how much of, because you know political risk is a big issue in investment. And you know that no investor will want to bring his money in a place that is unstable, that can't guarantee a return on investment. So how much of these issues, political risk, have this interest factored into the 34 billion that we're seeing today? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take that, Mr. President, and then we'll go to the next lot of questions.
Yeah, let me ask the Chief Executive Officer of Africa to start.
Thank you, President Adesina. Thank you, also my Chairman Adesina. First of all, let me also thank the host country of Morocco for hosting African Investment Forum. I say that because Africa 50 is based here in Morocco, so I have to do a shout out to my host country. But in terms of answers to the questions, I'll take the first question in terms of the breakdown, or at least the key projects, some of the key projects that were discussed here. I must say that I participated in a number of boardrooms. I was very excited by some of the projects that I saw in the boardrooms. Just to mention a few of them, a couple of projects in Tanzania. I should say that it's only at the African Investment Forum that you could see boardrooms discussing projects where the president of the country is actually sitting in the room, engaging the investors and trying to unlock the issues. So in the case of Tanzania, I was honored to co-chair a boardroom on a railway project, a standard gauge project of $5.9 billion of total project cost. And the project is highly developmental, financially attractive. There was a lot of investors' interest. This project will unlock the mining value chain, there are a lot of mining resources in that part of Tanzania, and essentially that project, that railway project, will unlock those mining resources and also help transform those resources so that we can have value-added products. So this is one project. Another project, just to give you the type of project that were discussed here, another one in Tanzania. Again, Her Excellency President Suluhu Hassan was in the room, engaging investors, unlocking challenges. My chairman stepped in for 30 minutes or so in the same boardroom to also, bring his perspective, also project confidence, address the issues that investors were raising. This was a port project, $600 million total project cost. Again, lots of investors' interest. So these are concrete projects. These are real projects that are discussed here. And the African Investment Forum is about accelerating implementation. Because when you have the senior decision makers in the room, you can unlock those issues, and the implementation goes faster than otherwise. This is also why the African Investment Forum is such an important platform. A final project that I could mention that was also discussed here, there are many projects, of course, that were discussed. I'm just giving you a flavor, because if I give you the whole list, we'll be here until midnight, and you're probably not going to be happy. My chairman will stop me before midnight. But another one, just to give you another one, is the transmission PPP project in Kenya. This is the first time that in Africa we will be doing a power transmission public-private partnership. So first of its kind. Again, the African Investment Forum is a forum, a platform enabling those kinds of projects to be discussed, to be advanced. And this project, there was actually so much investor interest that it was oversubscribed. And so we had to tell the investors that they may not be able to get a piece of the project. So these are just to give you a flavor of some of the projects that were discussed. I'm sure the senior director for the African Investment Forum has a list of all of the projects, but I wanted to give you a flavor of those projects that were discussed. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I can. Yeah, okay.
Stay to that. Jimmy may want to say some words about the projects that you guys are looking at. Same for AFC and also for AfriExim Islamic Development Bank. So please.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity, and I'd also like to commend Ms. Chinelo for really a quintessential conference. One of the things, one of the projects that we looked at really spoke to climate resilient infrastructure. There was a project that we looked at around the greening of buildings, and that talks to creating energy and water efficiency. Another thing that I'd like to touch on is that we didn't only, look at projects of now, but also about projects that create new industries on the continent. The project that we looked at was the manufacturing of green ammonia, and that project will be happening in the Southern Africa region. Mr. President and the media, I'd also like to add that commitments that were made were, going along the infrastructure value chain. Commitments were made to develop projects further. Commitments were made to invest as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. AFC?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, it was a very interesting edition, 2023 in Morocco. We attended several boardroom sessions as well, and I have to echo your introduction words by saying that a lot of critical projects and transition initiatives like the Green Revolution or everything that is related to the net zero policies have had their share of projects presented. I can, for example, cite the transmission lines in Kenya, which is interesting because it's the first IPT of its kind in Africa. One project that was very interesting as well, and that is linked to the electric vehicles and green revolution, is the Zambia factory for critical minerals that would be destined to EVs, EV batteries. And another one that was pretty interesting was the Ghana Wind project, a 260 megawatt IPP project. So indeed, we can see that all the important subjects are addressed, and that Africa would not stand in second rank to achieve those goals.
AfriExim.
Thank you, Mr. President. We at AfriExim Bank participated in the Battery Initiative. This is a landmark project that involves the DRC and the governments of Zambia. Essentially, what the project entails is to develop a special economic zones whereby we can support the development of natural resources, that's cobalt and lithium, move them up the value chain so that we can ensure that the regional value chains can be vibrant. In this regard, we are working with our partners, the African Development Bank, AFC, BADEA, and UNECA to develop this particular project. We brought this project to the boardrooms and we received significant interest. And one of the good things that came out of this particular boardroom session was the fact that we're coming at the project development stage. So we've got sufficient latitude within which we can structure this transaction to ensure that we can bring it to the market. Maybe just one statistic I'd like to draw out is the fact that when you export raw materials, you're playing in the market space of about an $11 billion project. With this particular project, we're trying to move up so that we can at least bring cathode and anode precursors. That's a $221 billion project, and that's what we're trying to unleash onto the continent. Looking ahead, what we also expect is that once these special economic zones are brought on stream, we should be able to move even further down the value chain and now play in the $7 trillion market. And that's the vision we have, and that's what we want to do with our partners. Thank you.
Islamic Development Bank.
Oh. Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, let me thank, on behalf of His Excellency Dr. Soleimani Jasser, and say how immensely grateful we are to the Kingdom of Morocco and to His Majesty King Mohammed VI, may God assist him, for hosting this edition, very successful edition of the AIF. So as far as IDB is concerned and the group, and the boardrooms are concerned, we've had several encounters and very interesting discussions on projects that we've been involved with from the early stages. One I can think of is the gas pipeline projects. So the discussions with ONIM IDB, just as a side note, financed the FEED study for this particular project. And we're very optimistic and excited at the prospects of seeing some fast tracking in this progress, and we would be more than happy to consider additional financing for this. Another one in Morocco that we've looked at favorably also is the Nador Med port. The road portion of the project was also financed by the IDB, and we're looking very favorably at that. But another one to still consider Morocco is the airline financing opportunity that came across. And this is something that we're considering and looking at with our partners from Afrexim Bank. If we go outside Morocco, I mean, there's some very interesting projects that have very good prospects. Thinking in terms of industry and trade, particularly in Egypt with a soda ash project. So this is something that we'll also be considering further. Hydropower is something that we've been very active in, that particular space. So the Mozambique hydro project is something that we would be more than happy to engage further. And last but not least, on the climate finance side, we've had some very interesting bilateral with the Senegalese APIX, Agence pour la Promotion de l'Investissement, for a very interesting proposal actually to solve one of the predicaments they have with the line of the TER going across two forests. So there's a biodiversity component, there's several components to this project. And this is a realization, it's important to mention, that alone we cannot achieve much. But this is a project where we would need very active mobilization of partners across the value chain, from project feasibility, development,